Okay.
Over to you, Mark.
Right, guys. My name's Mark. I'm an addict. Hello, guys. We tried. I actually picked another reading, but we couldn't find it, so I just picked, and that was the first one. It's quite funny how it sort of goes on really about higher power, because if I had been new. And people, I came into a meeting to begin with, it never really happened when I first got clean, but if it did, and the people talked about higher power or God, or I would have been like really edgy around the whole thing. In fact, because I remember that when I was first seeing the steps, I thought God, because it's got so many mentions, and the literature's got so many mentions of God. But it's fun. But my sort of relationship with that's really changed over the years. So just to sort of, it's quite interesting. Roz has asked me to do a share now, and next week, I think Wednesday, I'll be clean. I was in detox this time 29 years ago, so next Wednesday will be 29 years clean. Wow. And it's funny. What would I was thinking, what would if somebody like at that time when I was first getting clean, if somebody had said, look, you're going to stay clean, and this is going to happen to you. You're going to have all these amazing fucking experiences as well, but you're going to be a dad, you're going to have kids, you're going to create a career, you're going to create this career, you're going to travel the world, but you're also going to have had to deal with your really close friends dying, your mum and your dad dying, really close friends dying of cancer. You're going to break up, you're going to get married, you're going to get divorced, you're going to get fucking... it's like all the things that happened. You're going to write a book. You're going to wind up doing this stuff, and then you're going to feel. It's like Ada just went. There is no way I can do that fucking clean. There's no way I could get through, because at that point when I was first like trying to get, I wasn't even trying to get clean, even when I was standing outside that. Because I remember the day that I went into the detox, it was a psychiatric hospital, because I was state funded. I had no money or anything like that. And I came out. I'd been in Belmarsh prison just before it, a couple of weeks before it, and I got this. And the only reason I went in to the detox as well was because. I was up for a charge. Initially, when I first got charged, it was an affray charge, so it didn't really carry a massive sentence, but I could have got a couple of years for it. And when I was in the London Crown Court, I was thinking, I applied to get into a detox so that it would look good in court, so that I could try and swerve out the thing. And what's fucking crazy about how everything goes in cycles in recovery is 10 years later, 10 years after I was clean, I got asked to do jury service. And as they said to me, the woman on the phone says, you're eligible for jury service. I says, I've got quite an extensive criminal record from... And she says, yeah, but there's nothing. They're all spent. It's been over 10 years, and I wound up doing jury service in the same Crown Court that I was last in, and not just did I do jury service, I led the jury. I fucking went in and I said, all right, the guys that are up, and it was so fucking mad. There was 50, whatever there is in a jury, and mate, you really say all this stuff, but fuck it. It's like so in the jury, the guys who were up in this charge, I knew they were guilty, right? I knew that they were, because they were all sort of naive. The jury were all sort of naive because they'd washed all their clothes, they'd got their story together, they had a couple of days before they handed themselves in. So when it was a hung jury, I says, listen guys, look at all the heavies in the balcony, they're all trying to intimidate, can you not see what they've done to this, they beat the shit out of this poor taxi driver and stole money and all. I says, they're fucking guilty, you know, we should just convict them. And I swung the jury and they all, anyway, it was but anyway, going back to what would I think about, then I was thinking, you know, I can't get through all the things that I wouldn't be able to get through all the things, and then I got into this place, and I met a guy who was who basically was had been in recovery before and who'd relapsed, and he'd been 7 years clean. And he was really sort of sensible, really, and there was something about, and if we're talking about higher power, like sort of, I sort of gravitated to this man in this detox, and everybody else was fucking mad. I was mad, really. They were all sort of like just like me, really. And there was a guy in there in the detox who had had a fight with, and who'd stabbed me in Brixton after this fight. And he was there, and he was with a couple of his friends, and I remember thinking, oh no, he's there, and I'm going to get into this thing. But I just sort of gravitated to this older man who was like a father figure, and I wound up sort of talking to him loads throughout the thing, and he was saying to me, and every night what would happen is my girlfriend was still using, the girlfriend that I had at the time, who's dead now, it was still using, and she was an Irish girl from Ballymun in Dublin, and she used to phone me up at 6 o'clock at night, every night, and she used to phone me up, and she'd say, Mark, what you doing? Why don't you come out? I'm not using, I've stopped the benzos, I've stopped, it's no crack, no heroin, and just come out, and then within about 15 or 20 minutes, my mum used to phone me up, and she used to say, I'm so proud of you, you're doing really well, just stay exactly where you are, and when I'd go back to this guy, John Mills, and I'd say, I just fucking, you know, I'd be like really conflicted, because my girlfriend, she's going, come out. It was like the fucking devil, and the, you know, like, it was like too forced, and he'd say, go with your mum all the time. You've got to do it all different. You've got to change. And he'd say the stuff from the readings, like change your playgrounds, your playmates, your playthings. And at that point, I think I was so open and receptive to. I was just starting to. And then there was another thing that happened, which really sort of cemented things. Was there was only two of us. We went to this. There was this music, the guy who was one of the workers in this detox, in this psychiatric unit, in this drug unit, he'd been in a band called Monkfish years ago in the 60s, and Monkfish had played with Jimi Hendrix and Isle of Wight. They'd supported Jimi Hendrix, and this guy Elmer said, oh, we're doing this music night in Brixton. This was like the 8th of December 1996. He says, we're doing this music night for Narcotics Anonymous. I want you, he was trying to get everybody to go, and this guy Alan, who's dead now, it's like so many people over the years that, who were there right at the beginning are all dead as a result of the illness mostly. But he was like, come on, we'll go to this thing. So we go down to Brixton, in the Crypt in Brixton, across from the Fridge nightclub, and we go down into the Crypt, and it's a shitty old, it's like cold winter's night, fucking whatever, December, and Monkfish, this band are playing, there's no stage or anything like that, and this guitarist walks in, famous guitarist walks in, and my friend goes, that's such and such, that's such, I go, what the fuck, and so I goes, what the fuck would he be doing in this shithole of a, you know, and he says, because he's in the programme, and he does a lot of stuff for Narcotics Anonymous, for Alcoholics, for the other fellowship as well, and so then my friend said to me, he says, can you do me a favour? Can you go and ask him after he comes off that there's no stage? He says, ask him for his autograph for me. And you're meant to ask people for autographs and Narcotics Anonymous. But anyway, I was not sure because I don't know. So I go up to him after the thing and I say, "Oh, by the way, my friend here, wants your autograph." And he was like, "Yeah, just go get a bit of paper and a pen. I'll thing." So he signs the thing, and then I start talking to him, and it's just bizarre that this experience. But what was really, when I was a kid in Glasgow growing up, I used to have 2 posters, and one of the posters on the wall was him on the poster. So it was like a mad thing, seeing like your sort of childhood hero guitarist, and there was something about that night as well. And I sort of went back to the psychiatric unit. Me and this Alan went back, and I was just buzzing. I was fucking totally buzzing, and I think I was buzzing because I'd met him, but also like I pushed myself through this fear about the social anxiety about coming to Narcotics Anonymous. So I was really frightened about coming to meetings and going because they had meetings in the rehab, and just to give a thing like history. I mean, I grew up. How I knew about 12 steps was my father I grew up in Glasgow. My father was an alcoholic. I sort of was born really into a rock bottom because my father was an alcoholic, my grandfather was an alcoholic. We're poor, working class Glasgow. Just in the 60s, it was all sort of gangs, So, but I could see like when my father went to the other fellowship. When he would go regularly, he stayed sober, and as soon as he stopped going, which he'd done a lot, he would just lapse. And then in these lapses, he would just go nuts and he'd drink and he'd be stealing cars and he'd be doing all that stuff. And then he'd get back, so I knew about, so he'd done a lot of really in a way, if you look at sort of transgenerational influences, my father had done loads of the heavy lifting for me because I knew exactly when I went in and they showed me the steps on the wall in the rehab, I remember what he did. He didn't get involved. He stayed on. You know how they say, like the people, there's this saying that they say, the people that are right involved are in the meeting, who are right in the centre, is like intensive care. And the people who are at the back are in death row. It's like, it's like there's this thing where, so my father was always on death row, really, in the meetings. He was always like at the back, never got a sponsor, didn't trust, he was homophobic. He was like, and I've always been in, really, to some degree, intensive care since really the beginning. And I've always sort of really, in no matter what feelings, no matter what situations are going on, I always sort of like try and stay, I always come and try and be as honest about what's going on in my life as possible. And especially with individuals, with other men, I have like really good, for years, like men, friends who I can share anything with. So I've always, and done loads of meetings, and where, we've been like travelled quite a bit in different countries and went to meetings in all sorts of places, and I and some of it's mad, like going to, I've been in meetings in Russia and in Jamaica, and so what's the things that, what's like along the way, the things that's happened that's really been difficult and I've managed to get through it. So there's sort of 2 aspects, I suppose. There's a lot when everything's going good, everything's like when life doesn't really present any difficulties, I can go on for years really in recovery, and I don't struggle, right? It's pretty easy. I just go along. What happens to me is my illness manifests in lots of other areas, has done in lots of other areas, and I've had to do work in other fellowships in those areas, because I can see that, like, whether it's codependence or whether it's like SLA, or whether it's like not so much GA, but I've not done GA, but I've done quite a few like other fellowships along the way where I've had to really do sort of work on. But I've also then stuff happens to me where I hit a sort of difficult time, and I know that how my illness sort of works really is it tries to continually, really, there's this Mark Twain quote, I've gone through many terrible things in my life, most of which, 5 minutes, most of which never happened. So what tends to happen is I create stories all the time about what people think of me, or what, so I'll go into particular groups, or I'll have particular friendships, and this is male friends as well, and I'll get close to particular people, and then something will happen and they'll reject me in some way, or something will happen, and then I'll internalise that, and it can spiral me down into a position where I'm trying to work out what it is. But if they're not open and honest with me and say, because I tend to always be straight up with people. If I've got an issue, I'll always like say, look, when you do, if they're a friend, I'll always say, like, look, this is what you've done, Ros, this is what you've done, like, I'd like to work their way through this or that, like I try and, but I've had it a few times where people they've went into they've just sort of blanked, they've just went in, they've whatever's happened, and they've not told me what it is, and it fucking drives me nuts when that happens, because and then what happens is I revert back to type. So I revert, when that used to happen when I was a kid, I'd get fucking furious. So what I'd used to do is I used to beat the shit. So if I had a really good friend and this happened a lot when I was really young, it happened quite a lot, because I'd always try and pick cool friends. When I was young, and I've done this all my life, I've always picked kids to be friends who are charismatic, there's something about them, they're edgy. When I was really young, it was always like who was the best fighter or the best, and often it would be people who are really popular. So I would always try and get with the popular kids. But inevitably, if you're a popular kid, they're going to find other friends that, because they're popular, and so what would happen is, I would beat them up. I would go and find them and fucking beat them up. But sometimes I couldn't beat them up, but I try and beat them up, right? And it's a bit like that, and I get the same feelings of what I'm not promoting, but basically I get the same feelings, but I can't do the thing. And then when I can't get a resolution verbally, then I'm stuck, and then I can start internalising it and going, well, what is it about me? And that's where my illness really sort of can manifest. It can start going in, because my illness isn't the drugs and alcohol are a symptom, right? And I've known that for quite a year. I never got it at the beginning. I was like, what the fuck are they all talking about? Defects of character and like da. I mean, surely it's just really I'm a drug addict. But and I am a drug addict for sure, without a shadow of doubt. I know if I take one drug, I could take one, anything. I know that, even recently, I tell you, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but basically, a few people I know took ayahuasca, and they were like, oh, we're taking that, and I was like, there's no way I can take ayahuasca, right? No matter how well you fucking market this, right, to me, right, and sell it as a fucking, a transcendental experience. I loved acid. We used to make we used to get the crystal in Holland, we used to make loads of acid, we used to take mushrooms, acid, they used to fucking take loads of it. But what happens is, what I'm really always aware of is that when somebody say, like, there is a part of me goes, oh, I wonder, if I could do... I'll just finish on this. I remember years ago, I came out, I was in Jamaica, and I was in and it was Bob Marley's house. So Bob Marley, there's two houses. There's the house in Kingston, but there's also the house he was born in a place called 9 Mile in St Anne's Parish. And I was up there, and I came out the house, and weed's always been a thing where I've always thought, of all the drugs, I'm just sharing because it's, of all the drugs, I know that, like heroin, crack, fucking definitely, I can never use it, but there's always this, from time to time, every couple of years maybe, the thing about weed comes in, it goes, oh yeah, but when you were smoking weed at the very beginning, it was all good, and you were smuggling it, you were doing all this, and you were in India, and you were fucking in the mountains where it all grows, and so anyway, I come out of this house, and there's this dread with fucking big spliff in his hand, and he goes, hey man, he goes, you want some of this, and as he was smoking the joint, I sort of looked at the joint, looked at him, and he was just like fucking smoke belching out, and my head went, at the time, went, if all the places ever in the world really to smoke a joint, this would be it, outside Bob Marley's house. And it was like but I also know, and I also know that it never stops at that. It wouldn't be one joint. It wouldn't be, it'd be next. It'd be coke. Where's the coke? And where's the, So I just want, like, really, recovery has been an amazing journey of it. I mean, recently me and Natalie were I'll tell you this, we were in Argentina, in the wetlands in Argentina, horse riding about a year ago. And I was waking up in the morning, and we were going there, and I can't ride a fucking, like Natalie can ride a horse really well. I was like, I'd done this crash course with these fucking gauchos in the wetland. And some of the mornings we were going out, and it was just like fucking beautiful. I mean, like, yeah, and we're going along in these horses, and it's just these cowboys really. And there'd be fucking these birds, and there'd be snake, rivers, and there'd be snakes in the river, And I thought, it doesn't, and recently I was in Uganda recently with gorillas, and there's so many amazing stuff. Thank you, but also I have to. The main thing is I have to medicate my feelings in a healthy way by coming here, having a sponsor, and doing this work and staying clean, because there's amazing gifts that are available, but I've got to keeping on really. Thanks for letting me share. Cheers.
Thanks, Mark.